Okay. Are we live? Is there anybody out there? Yo! We're doing face today. Today's a face day. I can't see how many people are on. Okay. Daniel, how's it going? Yeah, hey everybody. Oh, I need a view. I need a view with the chat on the screen. But you guys, whatever. You can see the chat. That's how this works. GM to you as well. 10 a.m. here. Guessing it's not 10 a.m. for a lot of you. Unless either you're in my part of the U.S. and Canada, or maybe you're in like Argentina, which happens to like line up mostly, which is cool. Hey, DC blog. Darren Spence. We already said hi to Darren. Hey, 4 p.m. Yeah. Well, it's still in your workday. That's nice. 11 a.m. in Brazil. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, that's fun. My buddy works with a lot of like South American folks, and it's really cool because he lives like 10 minutes away from me, but he's in pretty much the same time zone as everyone he works with, which is crazy for working, halfway across the world. 5 p.m. Yeah. Hey, everybody, rolling in. People are rolling in. Drinking pretty gross tea. I think I need to make a new cup here. You know when you oversteep your tea and it tastes like trash? Uganda. Nice. Have you ordered milk oolong tea collection? No, I love milk oolong tea. I am drinking oolong. It's straight up. This tea is Indonesia. Nice. Yeah, we could talk about screencasts and performance stuff. We're here to talk about everything. We will probably do some coding, but I'm down to just let this be directed. I don't really have like a plan. I was streaming every Friday for a while, and then like life started happening. It was like one trip after another, and it seemed like every Friday I was gone. So I just wanted to get back on the stream. I don't really care what we do. Germany, nice. Yeah, throw in where you're from, and I always love seeing that. Yeah, this is what we're drinking today. This is called King of Duck Shit Aroma. Literally, that's what it's called. King of Duck Shit Aroma oolong tea. And it's, I love oolong tea. It's really resilient. Well, it depends because there's such a range of oolong tea. But I got this other oolong tea that I could steep for like 20 minutes and it wouldn't be bitter. But this oolong is like a darker one, and it is definitely bitter because I left it too long. I keep this like dump out thing on my desk, and this is where all the tea that fails goes to live. UK, nice. Clockwork. Tanzania, nice. Tanzania, that's cool. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law lived there for like a year or two. The Netherlands, all right. Willem, hey, Netherlands. Got to make it out to the Netherlands. One of these Laracon EUs. Romania, cool. Ethiopian, very nice. My sister-in-law is Ethiopian, my brother's wife. Yeah, so we always eat Ethiopian food. They cook it all the time, like ugali. Stop me if this is not Ethiopian food, but ugali, that like whatever bread-ish blob that you just like grab a chunk off and like scoop stuff and eat it. Or am I thinking of something else? I don't know. There's ugali, and then there's another one that they make where the bread is like a crepe or like naan. It's like their version of that. There's ugali, and it's not Ethiopian. What is it? She's from a few different places in Africa. She lived in Rwanda. She's Congolese by birth. But I can't think of the other. My brother always says it. He's like, I'm cooking what? chapati, whatever. So Hassan, hey, everybody give a warm welcome to Hassan because he designed, let me switch scenes. I'm becoming a better streamer here. Little face. He hooked me up with a bunch of designs for the screencast section. So I like had it kind of ready. And then, when you have something ready, you're like, oh, but I need like an explore the code link. So Hassan hooked me up with this and he's freaking awesome. His work is great and he's so fast, and like I can just hit him up for anything and it's like in a day he's got me something, which is so cool. Yeah, he did this, he did that, he did the call outs around the site, this, are you a visual learner stuff, which is cool. So he's the man. Yeah, definitely friggin' awesome. He's the up and comer designer in the Laravel ecosystem. And I'm just going to shout out Hassan even more. Like, he's just ambitious, and he like looked at the Alpine docs and was like, this could probably use a refresh. It's been a while. And I designed the Alpine doc, so it needed a redesign since day one. And he was like, I'm like, I'm not really ready for it right now. But he's like, well, when you are, here it is. And he basically designed me like a new version of the docs. I'm not ready to pull the trigger on it because it's like pretty low priority. And I still am happy with the design. But yeah, no doubt his landing page looks like freaking beautiful. Why no wire navigate on Livewire site? Well, sir, if you scroll down, wait. What are you talking about? Oh, I see what you're saying. I was going to be like, well, there is documentation. You mean why am I not using Wire Navigate? I need to. There's no good reason. I almost did it when I was building out the screencasting section. But then I don't know, I got lazy. So I need to add Wire Navigate. It's like the easiest thing to add. Why have I not added it? Beats me. Got to do it. Yep. Got to eat that dog food. Yes, sir. Hey, hello. Have I said hi to everybody? Hello, everyone. Punyapal, I'm not sure how you pronounce your name, but I know you because I see you around all the time. How's it going? So yeah, let's just talk about whatever. What do you guys want to switch to the face? Because we can do that. What do we want to talk about today? We can just chat. We could talk about stuff I'm working on. We could talk about pull requests. We could review a pull request, features, answer questions, whatever. Yeah, Daniel, hit me with an easy discussion. I would love that. Like if you guys, or if you have some crazy idea, like I want this wild feature in Livewire, like we can just build it out. Even if we might just scrap it, but we can do wild stuff. Indie hacking vibes. Marion, do you mean just the vibes in general, or like the design of the site or something? I don't know. Only if you want a discussion. Oh, you mean like a specific discussion. 7067. Let's check it out. 7067. Docs, yeah, they're custom built. I can show you around that code base a little bit. Wire navigate autofocus stops focusing after N navigate. Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know how. Create 2 pages with Wire Navigate. Place an input autofocus on any of these pages. Navigate multiple times between pages. Focus working only on first navigate after manual page refresh. Focus stops working after 2+ Wire Navigates. Limit thought about autofocus function runs before input becomes available on the page after render. That's true. Could definitely be that. Yeah. Daniel, do you have Livewire set up locally on your site? That might be a fun thing to just like show you guys, because once you have Livewire set up locally, like actual Livewire, like maybe we should just do that and I can show you what that's all about. Yeah, we'll actually do that. I'm going to write that down because I'm going to take a second we're going to like talk about other stuff and make sure that we don't just start down one road and miss a bunch of other potential roads. But let's say local Livewire, because if you can get it running locally on your site or on your whatever, if you can get Livewire running locally, you'll see how easy it is. Like you could just try something and see if it fixes your problem and then pull request that fix. And it's a lot easier than, me reproducing it on my end and tweaking it because I just don't have like the time in the day to do that for every GitHub discussion. Yeah, so let's just look at the doc site quick because somebody asked about that. So just for fun. So yeah, this is the Livewire next. My screen stuff's a little messed up. I can't get that like really pretty like window, you know, thing like that. I have to do it manually right now, which is, you know, absurd. Okay. Yeah, this is the Livewire doc site. It's just a hand rolled Laravel app, and something with Livewire v3 that I really wanted was all the documentation to live in the repo so that when you pull request a feature, you can pull request all the docs too. So this is the Livewire repo, and it has all the documentation in it, all the markdown files. And then I basically symlink that inside Livewire. Next, I forget where I do it. Maybe I just reach into vendor because Livewire is installed. So I reach into like vendor, Livewire docs, like in the actual app. So when you hit a docs page, I have this like totally custom markdown rendering setup. But yeah, I literally like file get contents, nav file, which is vendor, Livewire docs, get the markdown, and then render the markdown, which is this whole kind of crazy markdown parser so that I can get like table of contents and front matter and inject my own kind of stuff. But yeah, I render that, and then I pass it into a blade view called docs page. And then that's the docs page. It's like a bunch of Tailwind. I have some Livewire components, some Blade components. So it's like a pretty standard Livewire Laravel app, which is really nice because I went to add the screencast section, and I can just literally like, it's just a sushi model of all the screencasts where I, you know, have like a row for each screencast, and I put like the Vimeo link, the code link, social image, stuff like that. So makes it really easy. And then for auth, like auth is so easy because I'm just using Socialite with GitHub. So I have like, you know, login, Socialite, driver, GitHub, redirect, handle the callback. I can easily create, you know, user models in a table, and that's that. So yeah, it's just a Laravel app, just a really simple Laravel app. All right. Yeah, so we can't see the code. Oh my gosh, this entire time. Oh. All right, well, I'm an idiot. Look at the freaking chat, Caleb. If it was on my screen, I wouldn't have missed that. Dang it. That's so funny. Caleb, hide camera. How long have you guys been saying that? We can't see. I'm a dummy. I'll flash it to you really quick. This is just the routes file of the screencast site. I've been showing you code the whole time, and you didn't see it. But yeah, like Socialite, user where, GitHub ID, first or name, email, avatar, that kind of thing, whatever. Custom render, everything's in the docs file pretty much, except like the models and the views. The models are just sushi models with the rows and, you know, simple stuff, really simple. Oh my gosh. I'm a dummy. Okay. Well, let me catch up on the chat here because I clearly haven't been looking at it at all. Yeah. So that's what I use for the docs. 1,000 separators with Livewire and Select2 integration. Yeah, we could do Select2 integration on this stream and see. I'll put that on there because that's something that's been requested a ton. Select2 integration, and I haven't done it myself yet. So, PHP, random idea. This defer method name as a convenient shorthand for this JS wire. Oh, that's kind of interesting. So what PHP is talking about is like if you have a Livewire component, like let's see if I just have one easily in here. Screencast player, sure. And then you do something, and this is like a back-end endpoint, but you want to follow up with something else. You have to do this kind of thing, JS wire dot something else, so that you call this method, and then this gets queued up so that when the request goes back to the browser, this runs, which then calls this. It's just a way, like sometimes you need a render to happen between doing one thing on the back end and another thing. So that's actually pretty interesting. Defer. Yeah. And a string would be the most solid way to do it and flexible, because then you could put in like whatever you want. But of course I'm tempted to be like this, defer, you know, something else like this. But that's a little misleading, because if you pass something that's like secret, you know, I would have to like scrape the parameters in the method name and then call that back so that it lands here. And that's not going to get hydrated and everything. So yeah, it kind of would need to be like a string. So I hear you. But just because it's not like, because it doesn't, the name defer is something I would have to think about. And then is it, you know, too confusing? Like maybe it's like call after, I don't know. And then that's a 2-worder. Ugh, hard to know. I hear you. I hear you. It's a good idea. I see the need for it because it's a common pattern. Okay. Love it. I'd still watch your streams no matter what the subject is. Thanks, Marion. I'm catching up from like forever ago. I'm so sorry. Not at the hand, but if you point me the problem, I'll PR later. Yeah. Okay, Daniel. Well, you have the right idea, Daniel, because you've already linked to the point in the code base where I talk about where I have the autofocus function, and pretty much like I think the experiment to run is like if you put that behind Q microtask in JavaScript, if you do something in JavaScript and then you do something else, it'll happen one after the other before, like code just happens. And then as soon as it's done executing all the JavaScript, it paints the browser like a tick, and then it'll do whatever's up next. So you can do, there's a few things. You could just do set timeout. That's probably what you would need actually. Set timeout, just like that. And that's a timeout of 0 milliseconds, which just means do something, let the browser breathe for a second, just show the page, do everything with the DOM, then do something else. So you would put the autofocus inside a set timeout and see if that fixes the problem. And it might. Okay. It's VS Code. This is all you telling me that you can't see the code. YouTube needs a ping button. I know, that just like rings on my desk. We can't see code. Head is on top. Do it all the time. Okay, Willem. Something else. How do we get the Livewire logo in VS Code? It is dope. Yeah. This is some pretty hacky stuff in my settings file. I need to update my VS Code course with, I didn't want to like update it with this new stuff I'm doing because I wanted to make sure it's like around for a minute and that it all works well enough, but pretty much does. What's the, okay, APC, advanced, that's what I'm using for all this stuff. APC customize UI++. It might be out of beta. It was in beta. So I didn't want to like, you know, it was pretty much brand new when I installed it. And then I hack some. So when you're in VS Code, you can open up the dev tools in VS Code, and it's basically like just like a web browser. So you can find something on the page, whatever. You could right click, copy selector, and now you have like an actual CSS selector. I'll paste that in here to show you. Like this is what it just copied. So you can take a selector like that and then just write CSS, bunch of trial and error, and then I store this Livewire screencast logo. I made a little SVG, put it on my hard drive, and then set it as the background image with some opacity. And then I do some other electron-y things to it. So that's how I get the Livewire logo. Yeah, when premium course will PayPal be available? Yes, so let's talk about that. Austin Cameron, welcome, buddy. Finally catching one of these streams live. That's right. This is great. Austin is here. Austin is my fly fisherman buddy in general, but he's a fly fishing guru that lives in Montana. Lives in Montana, and he's like living the life that we all want to live. You all want to live that life, I imagine. Next render, yeah, or next tick. That's not a bad idea, Hooch. Like call it next tick. That's kind of cool. Be like this next tick. So the sweet thing would be if you could just do this, you know? That would be so dope. Ah, but again, like you would assume that you could pass in like some custom object, you know, like this. Or even like you would assume that you could pass in like a PHP callback, and that's not going to work at all because I need to go to the browser and then back to the server. Unless I did some like, there's always ridiculous things I could do. Like when you call this function, this closure maybe gets serialized and put into a cache, and then that, I don't know, you know, but like this could be added in 2 seconds. You could add this in your own app, just like do something and then call it and add params and whatever. That could be added into your own app in 2 seconds. You could literally, I'm pretty sure the Livewire component is macroable, so you could just be like component macro next tick, get your, you know, expression or whatever, and then return. You don't even need to return. Just call this JS expression. Is that how that works? Or no, this would have to be params. Or maybe you would collect the, I don't know, string. I guess params would be a string. Yeah, and then you would do this. You'd be like $wire dot concatenate on string. So that's it. If you want it in your own app, you could do that. I'll keep this in the back burner. I'll keep it in the noggin rattling around. Okay, next. Renner, okay, thanks for the idea. Yeah, Daniel. Is the background color for the Natty's theme default? No, it's not. So I started shout out to Austin Cameron. He's the one who showed me Natty, and he's lying about being a terrible fisherman. But yeah, my theme is Natty, but I do custom colors stuff here. So color customization. So the theme is Natty, but I changed the background color. I changed pretty much all the backgrounds and foregrounds to just be, I wanted it to match the new Livewire doc site color. So if you see that this color on the doc site matches my editor color, just because I felt like that was good branding. And I actually like it better than the Natty default stuff. Like if I comment this out, will it just do it? Yeah. So this is Natty by default. And then this is with my customizations. So yeah. All right. Yeah, it's Terrible Fisherman. Yep, Austin knows. Austin knows. He said it before I said it. I was looking at the new tall stack project to learn Livewire 3, but I've noticed the boilerplate is all set up for V2. Oh, I don't know. Tom, what's the new tall stack project? We could talk about new boilerplate and screencasts and my plan. Validate properties after true. Can we add? Oh, Pupunya Paul, are you talking about that validate thing somebody tweeted about where you put it on the method itself? If that's the case, probably not, honestly. maybe there's something there, but I don't think it would be called validate because it would be confused with rule, you know? Looks way better. Yeah, cool. I thought so too. It's like you don't realize that it doesn't look ideal until you change it. And then you're like, ooh, that's nice. Yeah, definitely need to update VS Code Awesome. Again, people have said like, are you ever going to send an update? And the reality is like, not much has changed, but that has changed. I am using this APC thing and changed my theme, and I should just, you know, do something like that. Okay. So, folks, let's talk about screencasts. And I was just tinkering with Livewire to learn, and I wanted to start with the new tall stack. Tom, composer required Livewire front end presets tall. So, all right. So this is Dan's thing. Yeah. I have no idea what. I've never used it. I'm guessing this is like Laravel Breeze for Livewire, which it has Livewire now, but what am I doing? I'm looking at Composer JSON, looking for Livewire, but I don't. Oh, because this, wait, Livewire UI? Laravel UI? What? I don't know. I guess I'm confused because I would think that this thing would have to require Livewire, but maybe it's stub files that change stuff. I don't know. Whatever. But yeah, I have no idea about this project. Yeah, just some boilerplate. Composer, Artisan, UI, Tall. Laravel front-end presets, installation. Yeah, not sure. Ryan Chandler in the house. Face cam is back. Yes, it is. And I even have a full face cam. But I forgot. I think I'm banned from using this because I was showing people code and totally forgot that I had the full face on until I was done showing code. Me, Dan, and Liam built this years ago when Livewire was still quite fresh. Gotcha. It's presets, so copy stub over and updates composer files. Yep. Yeah, so it's like Laravel Breeze or something for Tall Stack. The man himself. So yeah, Tom Dyer, the guy behind it, is on the stream, as you see, Ryan Chandler. Thank you for Livewire 3. Oh, you're talking about me, the man himself. Livewire 3 and Alpine.js. You got it, Christopher. Absolutely. Yeah. How would you recommend starting a blank project with Tail, Alpine, and etc.? I guess, so Livewire ships with Alpine. I guess if I was starting a new project, I might choose the Laravel. Laravel Breeze has Livewire now. So it has Livewire scaffolding. I think I haven't used it myself. How embarrassing is that? Yeah. So just use that. There you go. I don't know how much it uses Volt. I'm not a heavy Volt user, so I think they went with Volt for the defaults for a lot of this stuff, which is not, I think. I don't know. I should probably back this up before I... Laravel Breeze, take me to GitHub. Composer JSON, is that gonna require it? I don't know. Yeah, see, I don't even know how to like figure out what the Livewire version is. Livewire common. Okay, so there's common and functional. And Livewire common has resources, views, components, layout, dashboard. All right. Routes, tests, feature. Okay, I don't know. But I view dashboard, middleware, name, profile. Okay. Yeah, I'd probably start with Laravel Breeze, but I often just start with a blank Laravel project because it's as easy as just composer require Livewire/Livewire. It comes with Tailwind now, I think, or Tailwind's really easy to install. I don't know. I usually just start it myself, but I get that's because I have a lot of experience in Laravel, so it's pretty easy for me to do that. So my answer is Laravel Breeze with the Livewire stack. That's my answer. Select 2. People have asked about Select 2. I need to do something about that someday. Okay, it has Volt only. Yeah, I think that's a little weird. I think there should be, I think if you opt for the functional, you should get Volt, and if you don't get Volt. Because I think that's like a little disconnect. That's not really, I'm not a heavy user of Volt yet. So that's the only reason I kind of hesitated about using the Breeze preset. So yeah, we're talking about both has Volt only. I tend to start with my own starter called, yeah. Screencast. We're talking about screencast, and we were talking about the some sort of like preset or something. So yeah, so Laravel itself has the Breeze preset, but as far as like a full SaaS app, I did that for Livewire V2. I called it Surge and started building that. Had like a data table and a form, basic file upload stuff, and did that all in screencasts and sold those screencasts. And so I'm pretty much doing the same thing with Livewire V3. And I had to start with, the free stuff, which I launched. You guys probably saw that. And now I'm working on paid stuff, and the one I'm working on right now, and a lot of this came from streaming with you guys. You guys helped me with like pricing and ideas for content. What I landed on, so I've really struggled with what am I gonna teach next? Because I did this series and I realized like I would love to do a bunch more advanced content, but it feels like I wanted to do a whole thing on nesting components and dive deep into how Livewire componentry communicates and network requests and all that stuff. and it just felt too deep. I got about halfway through it and I really hated it. And I also felt weird, like felt weird charging for something like that, because it just seems like information people should have. So I kind of walked it back and tabled it and decided. So I put out these free screencasts, and in like an hour or two, 300 people had already like signed up and started watching them. I just silently launched them. And so I was like, I have this small group of people. I'm just going to ask them. So I emailed everybody on that group. I don't know if anybody here was in that group, but you would have had to just find it on your own. Like, I didn't tweet about it. And so they were, I just emailed them and was like, hey, thanks for being really early to this. What screencast do you want next? And I made a list that's just written on my desk on a piece of paper that, like, what I heard from people is they want data tables content, kind of like I had for V2. Modals, like all about modals in Livewire, and wire navigate, like SPA Livewire stuff, and then extracting blade components. So I wrote those down as like, I think those are going to be my next series. And the very next one, the one I'm working on right now, is modals, which I'm pretty pumped about, because I started just writing out all the code for it and had a bunch of Livewire architecture questions myself of like, what is the best way to structure, because there's plenty of different ways to do modals. What's the best way? What's the way that I would want to do? And of course, there is no best way, but there's different ways for different needs. And that spawned a few new features. You probably saw me tweet about that feature where I had like, let's see, pull requests, closed. Yeah. So I realized that like, this is just something that should exist in Livewire. If you have a nested component, you should be able to just listen for an event just from that component and call a method. And so I went with this @ syntax. We can actually talk about that here, because this isn't in Livewire yet. I haven't tagged this, and it's not documented on the site. My only hesitancy with this, I think this feature is a no-brainer, but my hesitancy is this @ syntax. I really like it, and I'm kind of married to it, but there's issues with @ and blade and stuff. This gets pre-compiled, so you could actually, I think you can have @ for each even, and it's not going to turn into a for each loop in blade. It's going to listen to an event called for each, because these tags get compiled by Laravel first into blade, and then the blade gets compiled. So this will get compiled away. So I'm not super worried about that, but I don't know. I wonder if a newcomer seeing this is confused. If you came from Vue.js, this is how you would assume you would write it. Yeah. So this, yeah. And the other little tiny thing is, if you dispatch with some data, I couldn't really think of a really clean way to do this. So I ended up giving you just, the most like, kind of bare metal way to do it. Get the event, get its detail, and get any parameters you passed into it, and then pass those into the method that you're calling. Not great, but there's reasons why for me to have something nicer, it would take a lot of plumbing, where this feature is actually pretty simple. Yeah, where is it? It's right here. You don't have to worry about a lot of that stuff, but basically I see, like, does the key start with the @ symbol? I get the word after that. That's the event you want to listen for. And I literally just add X on. So it's just an Alpine event listener that listens for that event. And then the value that you pass in, I just append $wire.parent. So it's calling this method on the parent. So it's really simple. It just compiles down to an Alpine listener and then a Livewire call, and then some extra plumbing to keep that around for subsequent requests. But yeah, so I like this feature. This implementation is so simple, because it's, even though it seems like a lot, it's really 2 lines of code that matters, as opposed to if I did something that was a little more robust with like event parameter auto forwarding and stuff, it would be like many lines. Cool. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, that's good to hear. Especially, it sounds like you're newer to Livewire, so it's good to hear that stuff's useful. Yeah. Yep. I tried to not get too blocked and, put out more content. And like, there's a lot of these I re-recorded, but there's ones in here where I think like navigate was 1 take. So like I might flub a word and I just move past it or edit it, make a small edit. So I was trying to be pretty lenient with myself on on editing and performing so that I can get content out. And I need to do that for modals. That's the big balance for me, is like putting out stuff that I'm not 100,000% proud of or happy with, because shipped is better than perfect kind of thing. All right. So yeah, so that's what's coming with the screencasts is modals. I'm excited about that. And like at the end of the day, even if you don't watch all the screencasts, you'll at least have the code for modal components that I would build, like blade components that can do everything that you would want to do, that I would want to do, and a few different techniques. So yeah, joining from Finland. Nice. Haas, good to see you. All right. So what should we do? You guys tell me. We can talk more. Feel free to throw questions out, or we can look at pull requests. If there's any specific pull requests you want me to look at or merge, if there's features that you think, like in a past stream, we explored isolate, the ability to, right now, Livewire v3 bundles requests by default. So if you have like 4 Livewire components that all are polling, there's going to be 4 components inside one request. And the problem with that is, let's say you have an expensive database query in each of those, that request is going to take 5 times that database query until it comes back. Where sometimes you want v2 functionality where each update is happening in parallel over the network. So it's a totally sensible request. We hacked on it on a stream. My head was spinning. We got really close, but somebody submitted a pull request that I looked at the code, and the edits are right around the same place that we made the edits on the stream. So I'm kind of hoping that this person watched the stream and was like, oh, Caleb he's close, but he doesn't quite see it. And he just made it happen. So I don't know if you were on that stream, but this request.js and commit is like all that needs to be added. 2 lines here, 2 lines here, and then just a few edits to this internal JavaScript part, and then it's clean. And then we can make anything isolated. Yeah, there's a few tweaks I think I would want to make to this, but yeah, I kind of learned my lesson from last time where I bit off like a really deep feature and I felt like I was the only one following what I was doing. And then I stopped following what I was doing. It's like, that's not a fun stream. Okay, we have a blocking issue for, Thomas says, for upgrade related to Entangle not working exactly the same as in V2. There's a failing PR 6833. Let's see. Let's check it out. 6833. 6833. Add failing test for a bug with removal of nested entangled properties. So Josh is the hero. He said a bunch of stuff, but clearly it's involved. And if Josh doesn't have like a clear solution, I'm not going to have one. It's all the issue of not being removed by a component. I don't know. Yeah, entangle is a deep topic. Oh, I did talk to Josh about this one. Right. This is a tricky problem. Definitely a tricky problem. And I would say you can just use $wire $entangle and your problem is solved. So yeah. So that will solve your problem instead of using @entangle. But there's reasons why for backwards compatibility we have to, it's dumb. This is annoying, but whatever. Use this and your problems are solved. I'm sorry about that. I wish I had a better answer for you right now. Tom, yeah, we have an internal product that was started over 5 years ago now and has always been Laravel and Vue.js. I'm looking to rebuild in Livewire. Nice. Yeah, great. That's great to hear. Yeah, got to do the streams. Adrian in the house, brother. Never been to Finland, Haas. Would love to. And my wife would love to as well. I can tell you that. All right. So, I don't know. Nobody's giving me direction. And I kind of want you to. I want you to tell me what to work on or what to explore or talk about because I don't have a plan. Like, just think about it for a second. What do you want me to talk about or to fix or to work on? What about evaluating script tags inside of lazy components? That's a good one. Let's do that. Yes. Isaac, you're a genius. That's what we're going to do. Confirm directive. Nice, Jeff. We could actually talk about that too. Confirm. Yeah. That's one. Lazy scripts. Possible to make something like view flow or react flow with Livewire. Not even sure what that is. View flow. 404. Flow. Bringing interactivity to flowcharts. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Start. Waypoint. End. Where's... Yeah. I don't know. Somebody recently was bugging me to make like a React and Vue adapter for Livewire again so that you could have one-off components. It scares the crap out of me. That would actually be really fun to explore as well. Maybe we'll do both. It would be fun to like build a React component and try to get it to work with Livewire just to see again, like, is that a really bad idea? Or is it, oh, that's actually pretty simple. I think the way that it could work and probably does work out of the box right now is if you turned your React components into custom web elements. React to custom web element. Like React web components. What does React say about that? Old and updated. New React docs. Web elements. I don't know. Maybe they used to have something and now. Yeah, so React component. And then... yeah, you create these web elements, attach your React thing, and then Livewire wouldn't touch it and it'd actually work fine. So that's something that is a way to just use React or something like ViewFlow inside of your Livewire app. That would be fun. Ian Landsman, yeah, he was the one who was talking to me about it. I didn't want to give him up, but he did it publicly, so we're good. Yeah, that would be a fun stream. Okay, Willem, couldn't you just pass the component object as a prop to a Vue React component and do whatever within? Yeah, the problem is with Vue and React, yeah, for what they want to do, that's sort of true. Pretty much true. Yeah, I toyed with that once, using Livewire inside of React just in a headless way, and it's really not that hard. There are a few things I added to make it easy. I put that in a separate branch, and I really don't have plans of exploring it right now because I want to make sure that I address all this core stuff first before like expanding to the world of React. But I think I figured what Ian was talking about is that he wanted to use a React component inside of a Livewire component, but maybe that's wrong. Richard, Caleb, what do you think of HTMX? HTMX is great. I used HTMX before I wrote Livewire. It used to be called Intercooler.js, and now it's HTMX, and I'm friends with the creator of it. And yeah, Carson Gross is his name, and he's a good guy. It's a good project, and it's very much in the spirit of Livewire. It's just less, it's more bare metal, and you know, stuff like transitions is tough and whatever, but HTMX is great. It's a really simple tool. How would I create an admin tool for an ad network to manage all their, an admin tool for an ad would manage all their user sites, ads for forecasting and reporting for multiple APIs, asking for a friend. Yeah, I mean, you would create a, do it like any other Laravel app, and then, use Livewire for the things you want. I don't really know what to say because to manage all their users, that's just Laravel user management, sites, ads, that's just models and stuff, forms, tables, whatever, basic stuff. Yeah, as far as reaching out to those APIs, I would use their SDKs, write my own wrappers for it, that kind of thing. Can we customize wire confirm? Right. So I actually wrote that down, can or con, on my list here because it would be, that's something I would like to solve or to talk about. And I like, when I was making my modals course, I thought about like, is there a way to make wire confirm work with your own custom modals in a nice way? And I'm not sure. So that's something that we could brainstorm. Yeah, it sounds like what he was talking about, React component inside a Livewire component. Yeah, Darren, that's what I kind of figured. We used to allow Vue components inside Livewire components with a separate plugin that has been deprecated. Austin, Tom Dare, one tiny piece at a time. Yeah, Austin knows. Filament, yeah, sure. Just do it on the stream real quick. Lol, I'm just playing. Yeah. The problem, Tom, is that the application you're building is like every application ever, where you have a bunch of pages, a bunch of tables, a bunch of forms. You reach out to third-party APIs. You have your own database. So, it's good and bad news because you're in the happy path, but bad news is there's no easy, like, here, just do this. Am I a React fan? I definitely have thousands of hours in Vue.js and maybe a couple hundred in React. So I don't know. I am a fan of both, I think. If I had to start from scratch right now, I'd use React because of all the stuff available, as opposed to Vue. And I like that you can have multiple React components in a single file, and Vue you can't by default. So yeah, I would say, I don't know. I feel like I'm equally a fan and not fan of both of them. They're both big JS. Anyways, for rate limiting for a particular component. I don't know. There's hacky ways. I don't know. For like a particular component method or a component, probably ways. It's an interesting one. You could probably create some attribute called rate limit that you attach to the top of a component, and I bet there's a way to make that happen. Add a debug mode for DOM diffing. Yeah, Adrian, I hear you. The original, the morph DOM that I rewrote did do that, but the easy way to do it is to add awaits in the code base. But even if you use await and it happens synchronously, so the times where you're not debugging, it still, awaits get pushed to the end of the microtask queue, so it messes with stuff. So I had to remove the await. So I would need like really insane architecture changes to get that step debugging, So I kind of just backed away from it because nobody was using it anyway when it was in beta. But Adrian, I know what you're saying. It's difficult for me to diagnose those problems just with the step debugger. Thanks, Con. Oh, loving the energy. Austin Cameron, the myth, the man, the legend. That's right, Austin Cameron. Michael, watching you in VR, Caleb. That's crazy. How's the baby, by the way? Baby's good. He's just a baby boy. He's so sweet. I know. I can't wait to take him fishing. Can't wait to take him fishing. Thanks for asking. Looking at filament, but want to understand Livewire better first. Yeah, not a bad idea. I am not crazy familiar with filament, but everybody loves it, and it definitely solves a ton of problems. So it's a great way to like move really fast. But I can't speak to like what you should learn first. But yeah, if you learn Livewire first, you'll be able to use filament really well. If you learn filament first, you're going to have to backfill that knowledge, but that's just how that works with any abstraction. Marion, talk about server actions in Next. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Well, as soon as they announced server components, like React server components, RSCs, it was like, oh, this is the Livewire architecture, just front end first. Rendering happens on the front end instead of happening on the back end. It's actually pretty much how Livewire and Alpine work, where Alpine handles the front end state and Livewire handles the server communication, and you can nest them within each other and blah, blah, blah. It's very similar in that way. So when I saw it, the haters of it, I'm in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, I've come full circle on it to think that this is actually a good idea. So I think that it is a good idea. The next stuff with that slide with like showing SQL queries, fine. Like, I mean, it's a fine demonstration and probably powerful. There's the cynic in me that's like, that's going to get abused like crazy. Like, I don't want to work on an app with that in it. I really like models as an abstraction to hide and protect your database interactions. I feel like co-location has its benefits to a point, but if your whole app, yeah, it's not that it's like Peter Levels' whole app is just freaking one PHP file. So I'm not saying it's a sin, but I don't want to work in that app. That's my take on the Next.js thing. Potential topic view idea. Multi-user live-ish UI with WebSockets polling kind of works, but getting the updates probably very hacky. Yeah, live UI stuff. Yeah, I don't know what to say to that besides use Laravel Echo with Pusher or your own WebSocket server, and use event listeners in Livewire that wire up to Echo. It's pretty simple. Once you get Laravel Echo installed, the integration with Livewire is done. Really, really simple to use. So I would say that's the answer. I've thought about really heady things where like your WebSocket, everybody's connected to a WebSocket connection, and Livewire component updates get like streamed to everybody, like a really deep thing. And that would be fun to just like take a week and mess with that sometime. But that's chasing the moon stars. You record changes so you don't need to wait. You could record changes so you don't need to wait. Don't know what you're talking about, Adrian. You're talking about WebSockets. You're coming to Laravel EU. I'm not coming to Laracon EU because I'm going to be traveling. Laracon EU happens during our like winter trip. Winter is really brutal where I live, so we take like between 1 and 3 months and go somewhere warm. And so I would already be on that trip, and then I would need to travel from traveling with my family to Amsterdam, and that's kind of not realistic. So it sucks, but I'm probably not going to attend Laracon EU for as long as it happens during that trip. Bummer. Sorry. Also, just want to say thanks for your great work in Livewire Alpine. Yeah, Morden, you got it. You got it, buddy. Okay, so let's explore two concepts. There's the confirm thing. Let's do that because maybe we can come up with something quick. Symfony and TurboFrame. I'm guessing TurboFrame is like Hotwire, Turbo, and then frames inside of that. Handbook. Turbo frames. Yeah, totally great. Like Turbo is honestly, it's very similar to HTMX. The con of it is it's the pro and the con. You're manually sending HTML snippets to a specific frame, and there's all sorts of stuff with that. Like if you have a form and you want to send validation messages but keep like focus state in the input, if you want to show like a loading indicator, if you want to bind that, if you want to do something, you know, with like front end interaction without sending to the server, if you want to transition things in and out, like that's when this stuff starts to break down, in my opinion. And it feels like you're on a Turbo app when you're on a Turbo app, where I think Livewire's advantage is it can feel like an actual just JavaScript SPA, like very optimistic UI renders, because we have all sorts of tools for that. So yeah, it's more fine-grained control, but Turbo's cool. Turbo is HTMX basically. Yeah, Hotwire and Symfony. There's Symfony Live components or something. I've talked to the maintainers of that a few times. They're using a lot of Livewire's front end code base to kind of recreate Livewire in Symfony. So if that's not out yet, it will be at some point, I guess. Yeah, Punya Paul. That's it. That's it for whoever was asking about Echo in here. Do you have any plans to eventually move the history and navigate plugins back to the Alpine repo? I'm interested in make them integrating them with Alpine Ajax. Yeah, I'm not sure. If there's people like you who want it, if there's enough of that, then yes. I started out thinking they would be Alpine components first and foremost, but the demand is more on the Livewire side, and it makes a lot of sense to keep it in that code base because I can make like a couple changes. But I'll say that internally, I'm aware that to me, they are separate plugins that can be used without Livewire. So I try to keep those code bases isolated. But so no plans, but I am open to it for sure if the moment calls for it. Okay, so let's brainstorm wire confirm really quick. So let me open I don't know. We can do it in this here. What have I done? Screencast. Yeah, okay. So let's just open up a new branch on the Livewire doc site just to have something to work with. And we'll make a new Livewire component, and we'll call it RME as well, which just means remove me. It's how I know to actually remove something that I just created as a throwaway. Okay, so if this is a form and you have a button inside that form called wire confirm, well, I guess it doesn't work with forms per se. but this is what we got. Wire click delete, wire confirm, are you sure? And now when you click that button, the native browser confirmation will show are you sure, and then you can continue or stop. Now, if you want to use your own modal, I don't know what the best API for this is. Like, maybe there's something that's like livewire dot handle confirmation, and then it's a callback that says succeed and fail. And then you could use something like sweet alert, whatever, and then call continue or break, but those are pretty reserved, you know, but call succeed or fail. And that's one way to do it, but this is like messed up because ideally you have your own blade component for modals like this. And you use them with like X slot button or something, you know, and then panel or whatever, that you have your actual like contents here and open or close here, you know. So how do you wire up this to this globally, you know? And then I have to send this with every single request, which feels a little weird. I don't know, you know, I don't know. If anybody has any ideas, hit me up. We can move past it if nothing strikes us, but Adrian, Livewire V4 went soon. There was something recently where I was like, man, this is like such a small breaking change, but I want to make it so bad. I should just tag Livewire V4 today. Any plans to improve how binding Livewire assets works when Laravel is hosted in a subfolder? No. I've been hesitating there's an open PR to be able to publish Livewire's front-end assets. I've hesitated to merge it because the world is so nice if nobody publishes assets, because you can bundle them yourself. And maybe that's the answer. When you create your bundle, I show you in the docs that you can do. So you go into installation and then you go down to manually building Livewire and Alpine. From your bundle, you can import from the vendor directory Livewire and Alpine, build it, and then you have a JavaScript file that you can put anywhere. So try that. That's my answer, I think. Okay. What else are we saying? Okay. Using own modal is out of scope. I know, Michael, that's good input. That's kind of was my feeling, is like, if you want to still use something, like if you need something more complex, you just put the modal here. You know, you have the button itself would become this, you know, remove wire delete, you know, then when the user hits delete, it opens the modal. And then in here, you say, are you sure? If they have cancel, then you close the modal. If they have confirm, you say delete. So, and then you can use Alpine to do anything you need to do. And I think that is okay. I think I needed somebody to say that. Thank you, Michael. I agree with you. I like wire then approach, and Jetstream uses in their modals to handle confirmations. Oh, Jetstream. Let's take a look at that. So confirms password, wire then, yes, as an abstraction to that, and then inside confirms password. Confirm password blade, wire then gets forwarded somewhere, and I don't know how it gets used, but I don't know. There's a prop somewhere that handles it. Confirm, X button, form, post, action. I don't know. I think I'm in the wrong thing. maybe not. Whatever. That is pretty interesting. Wire then. Good call. What if it will be Blade or Livewire modal? Yeah, just use Blade modal. I think that's it. Something like wire confirm, wire modal. I know. How's wiretap going, Tom? Good question. It's not going. The line I've been giving people on this stream is I'm going to wait till I make money and get some screencasts going and then work on wiretap, because wiretap's going to be free, and so it won't make me money, and I basically cut off my revenue stream when I launched V3 without screencasts that people can buy. So I need to make money again first, and then I'm going to build wiretap. Okay. Is there a way of chunk uploads using Livewire? Not that I know of right now. No. Nope. Could be a way. I don't know. Maybe someday. File upload features are the worst because they're hard to test, automated test. And so it always feels like, like maintaining the S3 driver sucks, because it's like, oh, if I actually want to merge a PR for the S3 driver, I need to configure S3 in a local Laravel app, Livewire app, and do, it's just like, it'd be so nice if there was an automated browser test I could run for it. Okay, 404 maybe adding something regarding to the docs pointing usage bundling would be a good idea. Yeah, NIM49, the docs are open to contribution. So what I would love is if you could find the place in the docs where you think that information is missing or the link is missing, and then open a pull request on just the Livewire site here. You don't even have to pull down this source code. You could literally go here, go into docs, find the file you want, like actions, let's say, just hit edit, make your edits, commit changes, and then it'll open a pull request. After it'll fork it for you. It'll make it really easy. See, GitHub just used confirmation with the thing. Did you see that, folks? That's why I'm like, it's not super shady to use the browser's dialog to confirm stuff. It's actually safer for your users because it's going to work beautifully in their mobile browsers. It's just going to be like a really solid thing every time. And something that's pretty awesome about it, the implementation is so simple, because if you say console.log hi, whoops, get out of here, hi, okay, so right, you say hi, and then let's say console.log there, it says hi there, right? But if you add in here like confirm hello, it'll say hi, then it'll hold the whole rendering, the JavaScript runtime, until you hit OK. And then it will continue inline. There's no async await crap or anything like that. It's one of the few like ways to like halt execution in JavaScript, which is so cool. So I'm kind of partial to confirm. Somebody asked about payment for, yes. So GitHub sponsors removed the ability to pay with PayPal, and there's sanctions with GitHub sponsors for like a bunch of countries. I think Israel is one of them. A bunch of Middle Eastern countries, I've heard from people that they can't even like sponsor even if there was PayPal. So that said, I'm not going to use GitHub sponsors for the future Livewire content. I'm going to use Paddle so that you can use a credit card or you can use PayPal, and then it's just anybody can, pay if they want. It's become, and GitHub sponsors is a great platform, but I don't want all my eggs in that basket, especially after they yanked PayPal and I lost a bunch of money. So I'm not going to use GitHub sponsors for the future V3 stuff. Light theme everywhere except VS Code. Yeah, that's what I do. Wiretap is a dev Livewire debugging tool. Has Daniel, Crypto Caleb, Squishy Coin. Let's do it. All right. So that's the modal thing. Let's talk one more thing here before I run out of brain juice, and then we can call it a day. We've been at this an hour. Yeah. Hour and a half I found is like a really good, hour and a half, 2 hours max is good stream length. All right. Let's talk about something. This is a feature that needs to happen. It needs to happen. The reason it hasn't is because I haven't found the best way to do it yet, but maybe we will on this stream. Be great to collab with Adam on Tailwind UI. And we've talked about that. Like, it's not that that door is closed, but he's focused on React. Even though like a good portion of his users aren't. So I think he has an open mind, but he's very much in the position where he's not looking to maximize profits or popularity. He's looking to maximize his own enjoyment. And that's not to say that's really not a bad thing at all. It's just the way he's like, if it was somebody else's company, I could go to him and be like, here's opportunity. And they'd be like, great, we'll take it. With Adam, it's like he hears opportunity, but also complexity, maintenance, expand your team, make your head hurt, you know? And so for him, it's like, not sure. So it's not so simple. Any new Alpine components in development, Richard? Not right now. Nope. But there probably will be when I start doing these screencasts and need new components. Okay. Anything started on it? Anything to show? Haas Wiretap. The best thing to look at is my Livewire launch talk at Laracon. That's a whole demo of it. How's Volt going? Is it the preferred way to use Livewire for new projects? It is not. It is not my preferred way. Volt is good. There's a slew of people that like it and enjoy it. And I've found the need for it myself a few times where it's nice to have your component and your view in the same file, so you're not like chasing files all over the place. Like, it has some architectural advantages, but it also has the cons of that approach. So for me personally, I haven't found the need or desire for it for the projects that I'm building. I think there's lots of types of projects where Volt would be fantastic, but not the recommended way from my perspective. What are your thoughts on Filament 3, which uses Livewire and Alpine extensively? Filament's great. I haven't used it myself. I don't know a ton about it. And the reason is transparently because I don't want to, I don't know, this probably sounds insane to you, but a lot of what Filament does is things that I want to like show screencasts about, eventually sell components, give components, all that stuff. And I don't want to like use it. Actually, Jason Fried was talking about this the other day. Like, if I use Filament, then when I go to do a data tables package, I'll be influenced by their code. You know, maybe there's things in there that I really like, but I don't want to steal, basically. And even though it's not stealing per se, it's an open source project. It's like, that's kind of my philosophy with it, unfortunately. But the Filament crew is great. I'm friends with all of them. They're all fantastic. Hassan is on the crew. I use him for design. Yeah, Dan's been a contributor to Livewire forever. Ryan as well. So definitely rooting for the project, but my thoughts on Filament is I don't use it personally. Also, I build more like custom stuff where Filament is great for like, from what I understand, it's fantastic for like moving really fast, you know, like give me this component, that component, this component. And now all of a sudden I have like a full page to manage my app, you know, with the snap of your fingers. But you have to take concessions with customization and styling and things like that, where I much more opt for just like hand building a lot of stuff. But eventually Livewire, I hope, has like out of the box componentry that Livewire itself, you just like, you need a modal, done. You need a data table, use the data tables package, but that's like a long way away. Fully funded via Livewire Alpine. Yeah, I don't do contracting work anymore, Morton. But if you need help, we have a partners program that you can talk to us about, and Jason Beggs does the support for it. And so he'll fix your stuff. And if he doesn't, he goes to me and then I fix stuff. So that is actually the little bit of kind of indirect consulting I do. Yeah. But another option, if you need like something built out, Thunk, the agency, thunk.dev, I think, does great work. My buddy Daniel runs that. Volt is for logout button. Yeah, that makes sense. I disagree. It's weird as a preferred way. Yeah, Kyle. I agree, but it's not my project, Laravel Bootcamp. So, and I don't really want to like rock the boat. So if the community says that, that's fine. But I don't think I'm going to be the one to say it. Dan is in Livewire OG. Yeah, he is. Big time OG. All good. Totally understandable. I was just wondering because I stumbled upon it. Was impressed. Yeah, cool. Going back to your talk about alert or confirm. Being the only to the halt your browser, I find while true also works well. True. The trouble is getting the control back again. I mean, you're right, Tom. I don't know if you're joking or not, but you're right. Random question I had been using new my Livewire component get rules previously to get the rules with attributes. This obviously doesn't work. Any workaround that you know of? It actually still works. Did you try it? I think it works. There's an equivalent, I think, that you can find. Okay, so let me present to you something and let's talk about it. Let's say that you're building, there's a few needs here. All right, here's one. You have a div. All right. You have a div inside your Livewire component. X data count 0. It's a counter. You guessed it. Button, X on, click, count plus plus. Okay. And actually in here we'll just say, all right, this is fine. This works. Great. But let's say that instead you want this. Something like this. And the way you would do that is this. Then create an alpine.directive, or I guess maybe this is a different way to do it. This is the maybe a little less extreme. Okay. Right? So counter provides this stuff for you. So you could have alpine.data counter. And then here you would say count 0, increment. This dot count plus plus. Okay. So you might want to make this refactor. Yeah, I should play live guitar for the outro. Okay. So this is a refactor you might make. You know? Color scheme is natty. That's the theme. So this works in Livewire, I think. Could be wrong. But it used to. But this works. But there's problems with it. This works when this component is included on the page load. But it won't work if this component is lazily loaded or conditionally added later because script doesn't know where to go. Because it would have to get injected into the page and evaluated. So there's a few things. And you might also, normally you would push this to a stack called scripts or something. And at some point we actually built an entire feature where we supported pushing lazily. But that's a really complicated thing. So I kind of envision a future where this, we already have Livewire scripts, so this feels too close. But maybe it's like run or something. Or maybe it's like execute. I don't know. JavaScript, run script, end run script, include script, whatever. Okay. So, okay, so there's a world where we have this, and then our problem is solved pretty much. There's other problems with this. There's other needs. Execute script. Yeah, well, I guess what I'm thinking is you might have, all right. So let's build this out as a few different things. Let's call this basic. And that's just a basic way to ensure that JavaScript gets executed. Okay. And then let's duplicate this and call it less basic. Oops. Okay. So now in less basic, let's say that this whole component is something that can be reused on the page. So let's say that this entire thing is a counter, and in a parent, you might have Livewire counter 3 times. You only want this introduced once onto the page. So maybe you do this. But the problem with this is that this once is only going to work for the initial page load of all these, where now if you then conditionally add another 4th one, it's going to then include this script again. So it would be kind of nice if it was like maybe something like that. So once is true, and this will make sure that this only ever gets evaluated once. Okay, so that's good. Now let's say that you want to, there's times where like this is fine. All right, so these are all there's basic. I'm using the wrong names. Why do I even care about these names right now? We're going to call this scripts.blade. Now we're going to call this scripts once. And then let's talk about another use case, scripts push. There's times where if this included some JavaScript, like JS counter.js or whatever, you might not want this in line here. You might want this pushed into the head of your document and deferred. And so how do you do that? Normally you would use this, but those don't really work. So maybe it's like push true. No, it's like, like we already have Livewire scripts, you know, it's in the body of the page. So maybe there's something we can add, like to body true, or teleport to body, or I don't know. But then you might want it in the head. So maybe it's like run in body or head, you know, not ideal. You know, and then you could have like include scripts, make sure this only gets included once, run in the head, and then this one would be like run in place. It'll just run. Or this one you might want in body, run in body. You know? Hard to know. But that's the push story. And is there any other stories that I would want? I think that's it. Those are the things, right? Those are the things we want. Can you accept another parameter? Let's say key of the component. Oh, interesting. It should work like at push. Include scripts, true, key. Yeah. Could there be a stack type blade directive that creates an element with an ID you can append to? Right. What happened to the DDoS attack? Oh, sidebar, Daryl. DDoS attack got plugged. Laravel Forge folks are great. I had the Laravel Forge Nginx config by default accepts traffic to the default site as well as your domain sites. I think they changed that default like last week or whatever, because there was spammers hitting my site directly, getting around Cloudflare. So they plug that up, and that works great. Okay. Oh man, this is an interesting problem, but I gotta go. Baby calls. Well, when the baby calls, Willem, thanks for hanging out. So, yeah. As far as push goes, like, you know, we built a whole gnarly feature that hijacks push inside Livewire components and does the whole thing. I am basically, it would be almost impossible to convince me to do this again. Yeah, to revisit that feature because of the way I did it. What you're talking about, Isaac, I'm much more keen on doing, but it feels like we already have Livewire. We already have something on the page. Okay. Target. Body. Head. In place. In place is the default. But you can say target head once true. Like, what about this? How do you guys feel about what I'm writing right now? How does this feel? Speak to me. I guess like Livewire script. But then you would still need script. Blech. I don't know. It would be cool to have Livewire script and then just include your JavaScript, but when you don't have these script tags, you lose all the syntax. Highlighting. Wait a second. Why don't you lose that? Weird. If I just paste this here, you get syntax highlighting? Console, you don't get that. I guess you don't get that here either. It's probably because this is the con of using change language mode from Blade to HTML. Yeah, console.log. If I get rid of these, console.log, it still works. What the heck? I don't know, but I just figured that's a bad idea to not have actual script tags. And I want you to be able to add multiple and configure deferment and stuff. It's really like, okay, I like the idea of a target, especially if you can pass. Here's the body and replace it. Not bad, especially if you can pass any selector. I like the idea of target, especially if you can pass it. Oh, sick. Well, sure, why not? Right? Why not? Yeah. Love it. Great. Target it. Talking about that Forge thing you mentioned, Forge fixed the effect older sites and no updates are needed. I don't think it'll affect older sites. Reach out to their support. They'll probably help you. Yeah, not sure about the name. Okay, we got to figure out the name, folks. What's the name here? So I have include scripts. What's the name? Hit me. Hit me with names. At what? I'm just going to wait. What's the name in Vue? Is there a thing in Vue that does this? I'm not familiar with something in Vue that's like this. Oh, like script setup. Yeah. I guess. All right. What about this? We're getting... This is silly. Could Be like, That's going to be tricky. This would be easy on the front end because we could add something like, hey, it's me. And you know what? It might not be the hardest thing to accomplish something like this. What's the name in view? Setup, script, Livewire push with script. With script, okay. You know, that's interesting. That's pretty interesting. Let's try that. That's not bad. With scripts. That's my favorite so far. Haha, Esser, is that how you say your name? I like. Script, wire, colon, whatever. Oh. True. Okay, the only problem with that, Adrian, is I want to do some back-end stuff. Like when I compile this in Blade, I want to attach a unique identifier to it so that I can detect if the script has already been passed to the front end and not pass it every request, you know? So you could have it as big as you want. So yeah. Where whatever. Script once push or right. So at script feels a little weird for these reasons. You could actually put CSS in it, so that's a little weird, even though I already called it with scripts. Which I guess begs the question if asset is an option. Asset. Load. Asset. I mean, one-worders are great. With script. Yeah. There's pros and cons here, folks. Assets. Yeah. Not bad. Assets isn't bad. Coding, and I don't like uppercase actually. Better if it's one word. Yeah, agreed, Esser. I'm a one-worder guy myself. Both with an alias. True. Yep. Could be assets or with assets. Could we have a third param to pass a file URL? Yeah. I guess. I probably wouldn't. I'm not sure I would do that right away for the feature because it's really easy to just add a script tag and that's a lot more obvious, less opaque. That's already in use by Laravel. I doubt it. No. What is it what you are building? What is it what you are building? Adrian, I mean, I don't know if this is what you're asking, but why do we need this? It's because so many Blade components, you either want to write custom Alpine for them, custom JavaScript for them, or you want to include third-party JavaScript libraries that only apply to that Blade component. You want that co-located with your component. No, I know. I know you know. So what do you mean? Live assets. Oh, interesting. Or that's a way to be like, this is Livewire, you know? Oh, you want an explanation, so we find a name. I see. Yeah, what am I building? I'm building the ability to have Livewire handle your assets that apply to a specific component. Wire assets isn't bad. But can script not accept custom attributes? Yeah, so like, right, I wouldn't, the reason I think I feel weird about script is I'd be into it if you could remove this, but then you would remove like all sorts of, I thought you would remove syntax highlighting, apparently not. But I feel like any parsers are just going to get totally wrecked. Like this is, and this gives you full flexibility. And the word script isn't the best because I do want you to be able to push styles, you know? Wire assets, wire scripts is perfect, in my opinion. Handle assets, script once, target body. I know. Haas, that's the dream. There's specific problems with that, though. Wouldn't assets be confusing as there are global assets already? What about Hotwire? Hotwire is a different framework. Let's go for... Oh, no, Punyapal, don't retract it. What did you say? I was just about to read it. Give it back. All right. Wire assets. Yeah, I might be into that. Let's go for wire whatever. Wire assets is good. All right, well, we have polls in the chat, so let's do a poll. We're going to do a poll. What should it be? And let's do my favorites. Let's say assets, wire assets, and with scripts, with assets. Those are kind of the ones in the lead for me. Starting the poll. Wire tab, wire push. The problem with push is I don't want to support actually pushing to stacks. So I think push is out. Even though it, dude, push is, but I made a decision a while ago that I'm not going to do my typical make Livewire just magically work with the blade you already have. Because it's a dark road for something like push and stacks, unfortunately. I think it's a small little cost. One problem with this, with any of these, while I'm waiting, put your answer in the poll. But one problem with any of this is I want you to use this in a blade component. I want you to be able to. But now what happens if you're using that blade component outside of Livewire? What do I do then? I don't know what to do. I could somehow make it work. You know? That's a tough one. That's the nice thing about push is if you use it outside of a Livewire component, it'll just work the way it works by default. Wire run. Yeah, I thought about that. I thought about at run as well. Feels a little weirder with styles and doesn't seem super transparent. I don't know. I hear you though. Wire colon script. So that would be brand new. Interesting. Wire colon script, huh? Could components and associated assets be bundled in a folder and then auto-loaded magically? Like there is a world where we do really wild stuff like that. And those are things, yeah, those are like extra things, like extra concerns. Future of more intelligent bundling and using this outside of Livewire. Yeah, those are extra concerns. Bundle is misleading because it doesn't bundle anything. I think you would think that it bundles it with your main bundle, you know? And I can't really think of a way to do that automatically. The type of wiretap is what I meant. Gotta run. Please don't go into bundling land. You will not return the same man. I know. That's that is agreed. But there is some nutty optimizing future here where it's like, where I get up on stage and I'm like, and by default now, all of your assets are automatically bundled and loaded as ES modules and minified and transpiled. Because that's another thing is like, people want to transpile stuff and you want to be able to import stuff, you know? But that's a different life. That's a whole different life. Because it runs on each render or once. Can we use haswire assets trait? I don't think so because I want it to live in the view. All right, well, let's see what the poll's doing. Wire assets is leading by a margin, a fairly wide margin. Wire assets. Okay. Well, let's explore it. Let's just take what we got. Let's say it's wire assets. Okay. This is, let's say this is it. Is it, all right, first question. Wire assets is so misleading. Tell us, Adrian. Tell us. Because it runs on each render. Can we use his wire assets trait? Because it runs on each render or once. Oh. I see. I see. Run implies once, is what you're saying. Sometimes you want to run it, you know, the other thing we haven't totally explored is like, there's times where you want to do stuff based on this something, you know, like based on, well, even that. Blah. That's another question is like, does it handle dynamic blade changing content? Because you're going to be allowed to do, you know, this kind of thing, or like if auth user, you know, do something. And people do this kind of thing. I don't like it, but you're allowed to do blade. I don't know about the if and the morph injection stuff, whatever. But actually this would allow me to do some cool stuff. Okay. This is legal, but what if you depend on something like show modal? You can't have dynamic stuff in your scripts. You can have dynamic stuff that runs the first time, but not, that's why I feel like once is the way. All right, well, I'm going to end the poll. Wire assets. But I don't want to run anything. I want to import things. Not only run. That's true. Right. Wire use effect. Yeah, I mean, that is problematic, I think, in people's association with use effect. So I think I would stay away from that. Wire run once. Why wire run makes more sense. Inject assets. Okay. I kind of like that. It shouldn't be inject, right? Just inject. Wire import. Wire import. What about, I think import's not great because of its association with importing in JavaScript, and it's not the same. You can entangle, do some dynamic stuff if needed in your scripts anyway, right? Yeah, you can. Yep. Yes. Yeah, so I think it, what about wire width? I think that's too vague. Embed assets. Embed, yeah. Embed is something as well. Inject is already there. What's inject do? Oh. Oh, that allows you to inject like app services. So inject is out. Well, that makes that easier. Wire inject. All right, well, let's throw a new poll up. Start a poll. How do I do that? Start a poll. Okay. Which one? Say wire assets. Inject. We'll say wire inject. I don't think I like wire inject. So let's say wire assets and inject assets are the options. Start the poll. Let's see. Wire inject. For the dynamic part, that should not be your problem. If it's once true, it will be compiled once. Yes, as long as we keep this and don't do something, don't do it by default. I think it's important to have it false by default because you might do at this dot on some event. This is legal. If you do this, this gets compiled to livewire.find your component's ID. And this ID is changing based on every different component. So if we did once by default, you might think it'll work for everything, but it'll actually not, and it'll be really weird. So we need to have it once false by default. Okay. So that's why we have once. Target allows you to push stuff into the head, push stuff to the end of the body, or keep it in line by default. Should it be body by default? Like, should we even allow inline? Like, is there a reason you would want it inline? I'm not sure. I'm not sure inline is a good idea at all. That's another kind of question. Dan Heron in the house. Dan is probably very keen on the topic we're talking about. So let me pitch it to you. Ready, Dan? Let me pitch it to you without all the questions in our head. Here it is, Dan. So you got a blade component. You might have an Alpine data registered in here that you want to use here, like X data counter. You might include a third-party JavaScript asset. You might include some styles, some inline scripts, whatever. The current push and pull, Dan is the reason that pushing doesn't work because I think I launched it and he's like, this breaks filament, it's breaks Laravel, whatever. So he's the reason we reverted. So blame Dan. He's right. And I'm glad we don't have that. I'm glad we have I'm glad we have a dedicated API for this. But here's the pitch, Dan. Okay. You want to include assets? Done. Just wrap them in wire assets and end wire assets. Now everything in here is going to be pushed to the body. It's going to render at the end of the body by default. And if you conditionally or lazily load this component, those assets will get loaded lazily. I just thought of another gotcha with that. Whatever. They'll get loaded lazily. Don't worry about this note. Okay. If you have, like, this will just work. So you can do, at this dot on and whatever, and it'll work because this will run for this will get included for every component. Let's say that you only need it included once, or you only want it included once in the example of like script source, third party JS that gets in, like if you have like a modal component, and there's 50 modals, but you only want the modal.js included once, no problem. Once true. Okay. And then let's say that this is a deferred script and you want it in the head. You say target head. That's the feature, Dan. Just with this feature, weigh in, Dan Heron. Actually, it wasn't me. It was the guy who runs a different CMS. I lied. It's not Dan's fault. It's someone else's fault. Okay, Dan, weigh in. How do you feel about this? The API, the name. First, give me your gut on it. Yeah. It'd be great if I could just like get you on this stream quick, like with your mic, but I'm not a good enough streamer to know how to pipe that all through. So first, Dan, as a Livewire consumer, not as the filament creator, then as the filament creator, but just in Livewire user land. If you were building a Livewire app, no filament. And now we wait. No pressure, Dan. Wire Assets is still in the lead. We'll end that poll. We got our answer. Okay. All right, well, while Dan is thinking about it, future of more intelligent bundling. Screw it. Who cares? Using outside of Livewire and Just Blade. That's still a question. And I think it's definitely a problem that needs solving, and my gut is that this is the right approach. Okay. So Dan is saying he's qualifying it because he obviously isn't using it himself and hasn't had a day to think about it. But he's saying that this is probably fine. How does it work with compilation if I want to avoid CDNs? So if you want to avoid CDNs, you could have your own stuff. You know, you can compile your own JavaScript, put it anywhere you want, because it's just script tags being evaluated on a page. So that's fine. As far as anything smarter, I can't think of a way off the top of my head to hook into your normal application bundle and make it like lazily load JavaScript from your bundle, or like somehow use Vite or something. I can't think of that way. So I don't know. I guess what would be really cool is if there was a way to like compile with Vite or something so that you could use like bleeding edge JavaScript syntax, or actually like import something, you know, here, and Vite would compile this and then lazily, whatever it's called, I forget what that's called, but hey Rajesh, hi from Nepal. Yeah, that's like another thing, you know. Okay, you could use Vite inside of the directive, yes. And then for once, you compare the strings to see if it's already been registered before you output. No. So what I'm doing with once, what I'm going to do internally, is wire assets is going to compile down to like PHP. I got to do something, you know, like PHP, Livewire, start output buffer for scripts. I haven't thought about how this is going to work. Something like that. And then it's going to pass in like the component ID so that we have that. And then it's also going to pass in a hard-coded key that gets added at compile time so that this is always unique. So that's how I'll use to know once or not is this key rather than a string check, because it's more reliable that way. And then I can actually use this to optimize future payloads by basically saying from a Livewire component, I can have a running memo of the scripts that have been already rendered so that when I get to this in subsequent renders, I can say, has this key already been included? Yes, then don't include it again, which I guess I got to think hard about that. But, and then the end wire assets would end the output buffer. That's what I would do. It's not like going to be the easiest thing, but it's got to happen. Two individual components that have the same script maybe hash the output buffer content. So if you have two individual components with the same script, I think what I would do sooner than that is like just allow you to specify a key that, or I could have like an option that's like once global and then hash the output or whatever, but I think I would sooner have a key that you could say make same and then use that same key somewhere else. And then if once is true, it'll use this key instead of this hash or this runtime or this compile time generated key. It would use a runtime generated key. Not runtime, but you would have control over it at compile time. Okay, use effect was sort of tongue-in-cheek, but maybe dependency array is a good API for deciding if to run it on every time or once or whatever. Yeah, I don't want to get into dependency arrays because, like, what is that dependency array referencing, you know? Let's push would do it with the keys. Yeah, right. Push, key. Is that how push works? Pile, push. So there's push, and there's push once that creates a UUID. Yeah. And maybe there's a way to stack ID parts one. So push once, I guess, probably allows you to add a key here. Cool. Hard coding the key is a nice approach there. I think I would probably end up using that quite a bit. Yeah. Okay. And then Vite, yeah, you could just reference Vite stuff. Yep. Yes. Okay. So once, target, and key are the options for wire assets. Now, that question I came across when I was sort of thinking this through, if you have, yeah, there's a lot of potential darkness here. Does injection work after the first Livewire request? Yes. So you could conditionally, well, let me think about that. Yeah. Because if you have if thing inside your Livewire component, these won't be injected at initial run because if is false. When if turns into true in a Livewire component, this will run. It will have a key. It will check to see if this key has already been rendered inside the Livewire thing. Well, I guess by default, if once is false, it's always going to add this script. So it's going to take this script and push it. Yeah, it's like I also have to keep track in JavaScript land. There's going to have to be something in the memo that's like assets. And then inside here, there's going to be the key. And then it's going to be once true or false. You know, we have to keep track of once and we have to keep track of target. And then in the effects payload, I suppose, is maybe where, yeah, inside effects in the output, you guys don't really care about this, but inside effects, there'll be assets. And then here, it would be the key and then the content. And I just have to make sure that the programming is good enough to ensure that if there's ever an effect with an asset with a key, this key exists on the memo of that component so that I know if it's once or target. And then this is just the raw script content so that in subsequent renders, I can go, hey, is that key already in the list of assets in the memo? Then just throw away this because we've already rendered it and we're good. Yeah, it's going to take some thought. Do we need to cover some unmount method of the script will be removed again? I could see why that would be beneficial. But I would say the answer to that would be something bespoke like this dot. And I don't even know if there is scan. I do have unmount logic destroy maybe. No, not component.js, store.js, destroy component.cleanup. So I think I actually have something, add cleanup. So you could do this. You could say, this is not public API, but you could do this. And then this will run when the Livewire component is removed from the page. So that's how you would do that. Maybe we would add an official API. Okay. What concerns do you have with the internal implementation? I guess the only concerns I have with the internal implementation are all the different permutations of detecting, because there's two kind of onces. Let's say you set once to false here. Once, even though it's false, I still need to track, has this run for this Livewire component? If it's already run for the Livewire component, I don't even care about it. I can throw it away. If once is true, I'm asking, has this run or been included by any component? And if that's the case, now this is interesting, because if you conditionally include something that has once true, that's why in JavaScript, I will have to keep a global, keys will be global, and I'll have to keep a global store of all the keys that have been included. And once checks against the global store of keys to do that or not. Okay, I solved that problem. I think that's what it's going to be. Once means, do you want this run once globally? If you have once false, it's going to automatically only run once per the component's life cycle that it's in. So I think I just had to kind of like think that through for a second. Yeah, I think you're on the right path. Okay, Dennis, do we need to cover some unmount method? Unmount's done. I like that payload. Yeah, I think this is it. And then we just have JavaScript to do the thing. So this is the payload, and then the general flow is like when we hit wire assets, we compile, okay. Attach a key at compile time. Then when wire assets is hit at runtime, check if the key is already in the component's memo. If not, then yeah, I guess we have to do two checks. Check to see if the key is in a global PHP temporary memo if once is used. Check if once is true and the key is in the global temporary memo. If it is, add to local memo, throw away asset. Okay. If it's not, we gotta fork this. If it is, add to local memo. If it's not, then add to local memo and render asset as effect. Okay. Now, if once is false, this is just in PHP land. If once is false, check if key is already in local memo. If so, skip it. If not, render and add to local memo. And that's the back-end portion. Now, front end is when a component initializes, check its, no, actually just add effect handler for assets. If the key, if once is true and the key is in a global store, skip it. If once is true and the key is not in a global store, run it. If once is false and key is, if once is false, run it. Question, new question that popped up. How does this work with, so like this I feel good about. Like I think this works. So it runs once in both scenarios, yeah. Like, because you don't want it to run on every Livewire update. I guess there is a world, because once implies like almost like a blade at once. But there is a world where we add another one called always. You know, like always run, true. Or run on update or something every time. I don't know. And then the script literally just runs like every time. Yeah. In case you wanted to add some sort of effect in there, which could actually be powerful, you know? Yeah, once is like a global once. Always run is not once false. No, it's not. Consider this, Esser. If you had a button here, that just refreshed this component, you wouldn't want that JavaScript to run every time. Like, there's not a lot of times where you would want that. So I think there is a every time feature that I would have to add some logic for. So here's the questions that arise. First question is, what was my question? I had a question about, I was thinking when we were talking about that, once is true, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and I don't remember it. Dang it. It was like a deeper question that I feel like kind of needs to be addressed. Oh, wire navigate. I guess with wire navigate, I keep, okay. Add, don't rerun or whatever. Or maybe we do want that. No, we do want it to rerun. I think with wire navigate, we would want, by default, this would just work. Your script would be run again when you change pages. But in the case of something like alpine.data high, if you added something like this, you only need it once for the entirety of wire navigate, you know? So maybe once applies to wire navigate globally as well. You know? Ugh. Blech. That's a whole question. How does this work with wire navigate? How do you want it to work? Well, how does it work by default? By default, wire navigate, when you change pages, will see new JavaScript and it will execute it. You know? That's just how it'll work. But if we have this caching, okay, here's the question. If you have once is true, is it once for wire navigate? And I think by default, we want that to be the case, you know? Because you really only ever, you want to know that this is only going to run once per browser runtime. You know? And it's like, maybe we need another feature to be once per page, you know, with Wire Navigate. But I think this is the safest thing to do. And the answer, yes, only once across Wire Navigate pages. Okay. Next question is, yeah, using outside of Livewire and then Alpine and Knit. Well, let's just think about this one. If you have an Alpine and Knit listener in a lazy loaded component. So if you do something like this, here's the scenario. Are you folks ready for this? Put your brains on, because I need your opinion. If you have wire assets here, and you say once is true, so that it only runs once per page. Okay, if you have something like this, normally when the page, if this load, oh, you know what we do? Oh, you don't use, tricky. Okay. You don't use this because let's say by default, this script gets run after the full page is loaded. That means after Alpine is done and everything. I think. That's tricky though, because you need this to exist before Alpine runs. This is tricky, folks. If you just included a piece of JavaScript on your page when it's loaded, here's the first problem. If you just include a script on the page when it's first loaded, you need document.add event listener Alpine init, because you want to say, as soon as Alpine is available, but before it has initialized, register this data. You know? Hi, Balduino. You're coming at a good and bad time. Bad because it's going to be a little out of context for you. Good because we're in the heat of it. Okay. But this is a problem because this is something that I would want to do. Document.add event listener, Alpine init, Alpine.data. Okay. Now with wire assets, for the page load, I'm including this on the page itself. I would have to do that. I would have to have some, like, if this is the full Livewire page, not a Livewire request, render it in place, you know? Like, actually have a target to render it. Oh. Interesting. Well, it'd be hard to do that. Okay, it'd be hard to do that because it's wrapped in a script tag, you know? Yeah, that's a little tough. Because, okay, let's say that I always capture all of this. Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying, Dan. that exists sometimes and doesn't exist other times, so that we're smart about it. Yeah, this is ready inception, exactly. This is document dot. This is content loaded, because that's the other one is like, man, can't type it. Can't type it at all. This scenario here, DOM content loaded, is like, oh man. Yeah, I guess it's like ready. And maybe maybe like subsequent renders, this doesn't get added. That's the tricky subsequent renders, it doesn't get added. Oh my gosh, this is nutty. I wouldn't want to, because everything else, sorry, I'm replying to Isaac. I wouldn't want to trigger Alpine and Knit on subsequent requests, because it would cause everything else that listens to Alpine and Knit to happen again, which is bad. So ready isn't bad. It's not a bad thing to have, I think. To have, if we could make a combined event listener that we like listen for DOM content loaded or Alpine and Knit, you know? Because like we want to listen for Alpine and Knit. Okay, maybe add event listener. This is why I hate this topic, because this is like an impossible problem. Yeah. But it's not just Alpine, you know? People might put in DOM content loaded to make sure that all the content is loaded on the page. Let me see what navigate. Okay, so if you're using navigate, it's like, don't rely on DOM content loaded. So what did I say? DOM content loaded. My brain's kind of fried. Instead, add event listener for Livewire navigated. Yeah, so it's not just Alpine init, it's also Livewire navigated and DOM content loaded. So it's like we need a kind of uniform way like yeah, this one's a little tricky too, because we might not want to make an exception for this. We might want to leave it under that, maybe. Oh, this one's really dumb, because we want it to not run if the component is lazy loaded the first time, but we want that JavaScript to be yeah. All right, see ya, Punyapal. I don't know. I'm feeling like pretty blocked on this. So it's like, maybe we just say, if you're using wire assets, you can do I don't know what to do. You know? I don't know what to do. Livewire navigated. It's like we need... Or we put the control in the user's hand, you know? Which is maybe what you were saying, Dan, but we need it to apply more globally than just Alpine. So it's like, if it's lazy in some way... Yeah. Dang it. Dang it, dang it, dang it. If it's a Livewire, if it's a full page load, then we would want Alpine init. If it's not, we wouldn't. And that's how we can detect that. We could say, let's say, if it's a full page load, include Alpine init DOM content loaded. I still have a question about okay, if it's a full page load, include Alpine init. If not, don't. Right? That's fine. We would just need some way to say, you know, this is advanced stuff. Like, users are going to be confused by this, but this is at least something that they read this and they go, okay, this is probably the same thing as this. And then I can document that the difference is on subsequent requests when something's lazily loaded, it's not going to honor this. So you could do Alpine init. This is, Dan, what do you think about this? This to me is the best thing we can do. Add event listener, DOM content loaded, Alpine init. Then they still have control. They could do their own stuff. They could still do this. But this is smart. You know? And then we still have that question. I'd add a slight change to make it use an array instead of a string with or. Sorry, that's just for my own notation, because I think most of the time you're depending on one of these. You know, you wouldn't depend on the code. Yeah, you wouldn't. You would depend on one or the other, basically. You know. No. All right. So let's say this is, let's say, okay. Now what about Livewire navigated? So the reason I say that is if you do this, document dot add event listener Livewire navigated. And I can just say, screw it. You're on your own. That's a potential thing. Document add event listener Livewire navigated. Console.log. You're on a new page. If you load this initially, I guess you could, if you include this here, you're good. But in the once thing, when we talked about wire navigate, wherever does once apply across? Yes, only once across wire navigate pages. So if it only happens once, then you want this to have, if this is a lazy component, If this is a lazy component, oh my gosh. Thanks for the input, Dan. Is anybody with me still? We got to figure out this last question, and then we've answered all the questions pretty much. So, Livewire navigated. What we want is for it to not be included if the component is lazy or conditionally added. We want it to be included because we want that thing to happen right away. But then if it's loaded with the page, we need it to exist. So if it's a full page load, we add it in, which is what we would do here. If it's lazy, we leave it off. But the problem is when you navigate to a new page, if it's only ever rendered once, it's not going to pick up on that new render unless we make once not apply to wire navigate and those scripts get rerun. Oh my gosh, so dark. I know. I barely understand. It's right at the tip of my understanding. Tricky one. If once applies across navigate pages, if once applies across navigate pages, leaving out all right, that's a problem I don't have the solution to. The last one, even though I said that was the last one, is what if we're using it outside of Livewire? What if it's in a non-Livewire blade component? You would want to know, and you'd be like, if wire assets is not inside a Livewire component, just render it in place. Like, no, you would still want it. You would want to push it. You'd want to like regex and append it to body and head along with, no, we don't have Livewire scripts, whatever. We just, which locks us into head, body, target, and not flexible selectors. All right, that's more complicated. It would complicate the code base, but it would make it really robust. Like that. For each inject variables that we can use loop first, and you can do the same in user Livewire first, call Livewire navigated, etc., and let the users choose. Yeah, that's kind of tricky because we're in PHP and some of this knowledge we only have in. Right. Yeah, I guess there's userland ways of doing it. If it's. Yeah, I don't know. But whatever. So what I'm coming away with is we've thought through this way better than we have before. Like way better, but there's just a few lagging things that have to be really thought out deeply before introducing something like this. Not simple, folks. Not simple. Ugh. All right, whatever. It's going to be robust though, and it's going to be really helpful, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I have to think about it. Got to think about it. Got to sleep on it. Okay. We've been streaming forever. We're at 2.5 hours. It's time to go. Thank you guys so much for your help on all this. Thank you. Super valuable to brainstorm this stuff on stream, get opinions from users. Yeah. I don't even want to write a draft until I figure out some of these, but I think maybe the draft PR is just a giant description for now. But yeah. All right. It's time to roll out. Thanks, everybody. Love hanging out. I am toast. These toast my brain. Do they toast your brain? My brain's toast. So much focus. Hi from Italy. Thanks for your hard work. Yeah, thank you all. All right. Thanks, everybody. Maybe see you next week. At 10 a.m. on a Friday, if I'm working at home, I'll probably be streaming. Working on the screencasts. Coming right up. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you later.